Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a get ready with me / the booktube newbie tag. So I've been wanting to do a get ready with me because I have to get done up for work every week and I just never know what to talk about because I could ramble about nonsense for 20 minutes if I wanted to, but I feel like having a topic would make it a lot less boring. So that's what we're gonna do today. So I know that the newbie tag has been around on booktube for quite a while and I've been on booktube for a little bit as well, but considering I'm still relatively new to book talk when it comes to like how many videos I've made and how long I've been doing this, how many subscribers I have, I figured that I would just go ahead and do it because I think I just started making videos, never really properly introduced myself, so that's why I decided to do this today. And I'm sitting in my guest room, so my dog is in here with me. All right, so the first question is why I wanted to start this channel. And honestly, I started this channel because a lot of my friends at the time when I started the channel did not read. My husband did, but we didn't read the same things. So I wanted to be able to talk about the books that I read with other people that read similar things as me, or to just like have a community of people to talk to. I don't remember when exactly I found booktube. I want to say it was in high school and it started with like emmabooks and polandbananasbooks, and they really kind of got me back into reading. I read a lot when I was younger and then it kind of dropped off when I got into high school, so watching booktube kind of inspired me to read more, and I just have wanted to share my experiences with other people and kind of join the community. Next is what are some fun and unique things that I can bring to booktube, and honestly this is kind of hard because I feel like these days a lot of the types of videos around booktube like aren't super original, which is totally fine and makes it easier to fit in, but at the same time I have a very hard time coming up with original ideas, and so it's going to be difficult to find things to do and make videos on that are going to be creative and fun. But I really like the themed videos that everyone's starting to do with certain fantasy books and things like that. I also just have such a wide variety of books that I like. I like thrillers and romance and smut and fantasy, so I don't just really stick to one genre, so I feel like that'll help me a little bit with reaching a wider audience. I know I'm not really answering the question, but I also want to start getting into sewing and maybe cosplay, so maybe once I get that up and running I'll be able to start cosplaying as some popular characters, and that'll bring in some extra or some different people. The next question is what am I most excited for about having a channel, and like I said earlier, I think it's just being able to talk to people about books and like really have in-depth conversations about it, because most of my life I've just spent telling people about books because they don't read and they aren't going to, you know. So I remember when I still worked on the ambulance, I would like not harass, but I would essentially like harass my partner and tell them about the books I was reading because I didn't have anybody to talk to about them. So having a community of people that I fit in with and that we can actually have discussions about our similar hobbies and interests is very exciting to me. Like I said, my husband reads, but we don't really read the same thing, so that makes it a little bit difficult to discuss certain books with him sometimes. I'm trying to decide if I want to put more glitter on today. Maybe tomorrow, I work tomorrow. The next question is what series got me into reading, and that would be, I'm gonna go with the series that most recently got me back into reading, and that is Divergent. I read it in high school when I was going through a really hard time in my life, and it just was my first experience with like using books to escape, kind of, which I know isn't the greatest coping skill, but it's what I used at the time and it worked for me. So being able to kind of escape into that world really helped me get through that time in my life. I even have tattoos from it. I have a dauntless tattoo, and I have another one on my belly because it just made such a big impact on my life. But that was in high school, and then after high school I stopped reading for a long time, and then as an adult the series that got me back into reading was The Mortal Instruments, because it was actually my husband's favorite series at the time, so he kind of introduced it to me. I had known about it especially because I watched emmabooks, and that was like the Shadowhunters were a big part of her channel, I feel like, at the time that I was watching. And I had just never gotten around to reading them because, like I said, I dropped off with my reading habits after high school. So that one really got me back into reading in the last few years. Next question is what I would ask my favorite booktubers if I could talk to them. And honestly, I think that's kind of a difficult question. Like, I wouldn't have a lot of questions. I just want to hang out with them because the ones that I do watch are people that I feel like I get a good vibe from. So let's see. I think if I had to ask them something, I would start with like how booktube changed their life, because a lot of the booktubers that I watch I feel like are, in my eyes, very popular, and so I know that it's made some sort of impact on their life in a good way or a bad way. But also I want to know like the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I feel like when you get to that point where you have so many subscribers and there's so many people watching you every week and expecting more content from you, I can only imagine that, I keep getting my eyeshadow. I can only imagine the pressure that comes with that, because right now I have like 57 subscribers, so most of them are probably people that I know, but I don't feel super pressured right now to be posting on a consistent basis. I mean, I do because I want to have more subscribers and to interact with more people, but at the same time, nobody's commenting and asking why I haven't posted or anything like that. So I just want to know like the downsides of being a booktuber and things like that, especially like with brands and sponsorships and things like that, because I feel like those are things that aren't talked about very heavily, like across the board. I've seen YouTubers specifically avoid talking about sponsorships because they're worried that people will get upset at them. You gotta make money somehow, you know? So I feel like I would just ask them about all aspects of being a content creator, making a channel, and all the pressures that come with it, I guess. The next question is, what challenges do I think starting will be the hardest to overcome? I wrote these like in my phone as I was watching another video, so I think that's like the general gist of the question. What challenges do I think will be hardest to overcome starting my channel? And honestly, I think it's just getting myself out there, because I don't use a lot of other social media to advertise my YouTube. I post on my personal Facebook, so that's why I say that most of my subscribers are probably people that I know. I have an Instagram. I used to have a Twitter, but I don't know how to market myself and how to make good content on other platforms to advertise my channel. And so I think that will be one of the most difficult things, is getting myself out there and actually posting good original content on my other social media, because I went and changed a bunch of stuff earlier on my Instagram and archived a bunch of my old photos, because at the time I thought they were good, and then now they are not what I thought they were at the time. So marketing myself is going to be difficult. I know for a while it was very hard for me to come up or to stay consistent. I've spent the last year and a half in paramedic school, so that made it hard on its own, but otherwise just coming up with ideas, like coming up with a a video idea once a week that's different than before, I feel like can make things a bit difficult because, like I said earlier, I'm not the most original and creative person there is. So finding things that are going to be interesting and not just repetitive is a little bit difficult for me. So that I've kind of worked on. I like doing weekly vlogs, but I feel like I haven't quite gotten them down yet to where I am posting interesting stuff, I guess. I know for a little bit I would post a reading vlog that was just reading, but some weeks I read less than others, and so for those videos, there's really not a whole lot of updates happening. So I changed to doing just weekly vlogs where I talk about my reading and then other stuff I'm doing in my life. And I really like the lifestyle stuff, but I feel like that can be deterring for people that just want to watch my channel for reading, you know, so that's a little bit difficult too. But I think once I find a healthy balance between the two, then I should be fine. So that was a long answer to that question, but there's lots of challenges when you are just becoming a content creator. When did I start reading? So I started reading as a child. It was used as a motivator. So if I cleaned my room or did my chores or something, I would receive an award, and it was, or a reward. And it was always a book. I remember reading The Boxcar Children as a kid. I always checked out books from the library. I read a lot of Junie B. Jones. I read Gregor the Overlander, which was written by Suzanne Collins, who wrote The Hunger Games. I did not read Harry Potter as a kid because I was sheltered and not allowed to, but I did read it a couple years ago. So I've pretty much read my whole life. Like I said, I've dropped off a couple times here and there, just depending on what's going on in my life. But otherwise, I've read for as long as I can remember. I used to win the competitions for AR points at school because I would just read and take the little tests, and then I did not come out like I wanted. I would always have the most because in class I would finish my work early, so I would just sit and read, and at home I would just sit and read. So yeah, I've read my whole life. Where do I read? I read pretty much wherever. I have the Kindle app on my phone, so I use that quite a bit. So I read whenever I can. Generally when I'm home, I'm reading in my bed, which can be a curse because I will fall asleep. Sometimes I read in the little chair by my bookshelf, but that's kind of hit or miss depending on if my husband's playing games, because if he's playing video games, then there's a likely chance that he is making noise, so it can be kind of distracting for me. But yeah, I usually read in bed or my office. I listen to ambiance rooms or ASMR rooms or whatever they're called, with different sounds, because if I'm just sitting in silence, I cannot focus on what I'm reading. Next question is, what type of books do I like to read? And as I said earlier, I'm kind of a broad spectrum type of person. I'll read fantasy. That's really, well, my favorite genre used to be like dystopian, so Divergent, Hunger Games, books like that. And then as I became an adult and my husband kind of introduced me to fantasy, that's really where I started leaning towards. So I started with fantasy. I still really enjoy it, but these days I kind of have to be in a mood for it, or else I just can't focus on the story. I really enjoy thrillers. I started reading them, I want to say in 2021, so about 2 years ago. I started smut last year, I think, at some point, probably after I read ACOTAR, and I've really enjoyed romance since then, but now I have high expectations, and when I got into From Blood and Ash and started reading fantasy romance, that made it really hard for me to read any other type of romance, because now if there's not a romance aspect, or that's made it difficult reading any other type of fantasy, because if there's not a romance in it, I feel like I'm missing something, you know? So I kind of like them all. I just read Dead Silence, which is kind of like a horror thriller, but outside of that, I don't think I'm a big contemporary person personally, unless there's a romance or something else involved in it. But yeah, so I'm kind of across the board. reader, except for like classics. I'm not very familiar with the classics. Maybe now that I'm out of school or out of high school, I'd be more interested, but I did not like reading them forcibly. All right, so the last question is, what does my book collection look like? And I will show you in just a second, but basically I have kept a lot of books from my adulthood, and my husband never really had any. He's a big Kindle reader, so we didn't really have any bookshelves here when we moved in, and I just had all my books in the closet. So for Christmas in 2020, I want to say, they built me a wall-to-wall bookshelf to house all my books, even though I literally cannot even fill up half the shelves right now. I currently just have a bunch of junk on it that is taking up space so they don't look so empty. But lately I've actually been buying physical books if I can, instead of just reading on my Kindle, to save money, because there's literally a section of books on my shelf that neither me nor my husband are going to or have read, but we're keeping them because they fill in the shelves. So that's great. But all right, I'll go ahead and take you to my shelf now. All right, so excuse the mess, but like, this is the junk I was talking about, but these are our books. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-ish of the bunch of shelves that actually have books on them, but this is currently what our collection looks like. I have a couple more over here just because I was making TikToks earlier, but that's about it. I am going to be coming out with a reorganization and a tour of my bookshelves soon, so keep an eye out for that. Alrighty guys, so that concludes this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any book recommendations or video recommendations, please leave them down below in the comments. I appreciate all of y'all's support. Thank you again, and I will see y'all next time. Bye guys.